Once upon a time, way back before cell phones were a necessity, a vibrant and booming era of instant messaging apps reigned king as the default way of internet communication. Imagine that, having to sit down at a computer to use a dedicated application and hope that your friends were online at the same time as you to be able to talk to them. Yikes. Chat rooms were all the rage, and for the first time in human history, the entire world could now talk to each other all at once. Distance was no longer an issue. As long as you had an internet service provider and weren't using the phone, you could access the magical world of pre-social media World Wide Web. AOL Instant Messenger, Yahoo Messenger, MSN, ICQ, you name it, we had it. Being an old decrepit elder at 30 years old, I can still pretty clearly remember the times before modern texting and smartphones and how much of a rush it was hearing that door sound when someone you wanted to talk to logged in. There it is. But why do I bring this up? Well, within these apps is a chat room function, a place to meet strangers of all ages from all walks of life far across the globe, etc., etc. And as well, with all technological good, people will always find a way to use it for evil. It wasn't nearly as popular, and it was still pretty non-integrated in the daily life, and as such, pretty nefarious things can and did happen. It's this reason that the online watchdog group Perverted Justice formed in 2002 by two guys from Portland, Oregon named Xavier Von Erck and Frank Fencepost. They got their idea by trolling online pedophiles by telling them to come over with some pizza or some Taco Bell to meet an underage girl, only to be met with one of them holding a baseball bat. Fencepost was quoted as saying, "There's nothing finer than the feeling of when some bastard who thought he was about to score big with a 10-year-old gets the surprise of his life. My face on his monitor, my voice on his phone, and in a figurative sense at least, my shit in his mouth." They perform sting operations in which they pose as a minor in the aforementioned chat rooms in order to lure the would-be kitty diddlers in and get them arrested. As of October 2018, it's led to 623 convictions with 200 more currently awaiting trial. Perverted Justice has its volunteers set up chat room profiles with their age clearly visible, and if their photos are used, they're actually of children. While they won't engage any of the users, they will respond positively if and when the conversation inevitably turns sexual in nature. Phone numbers and addresses get exchanged, information is gathered, and arrests are made once the predator shows up to the sting house. Not only that, but their chat logs are posted for the world to see and read on their official website. Now, normally, embarrassing a child-touching sex offender leans towards a morally just outcome. The way the site operated became more of a chaotic neutral to straight-up evil as time went on. Members of the Perverted Justice forums would make phone calls harassing the predators' families, local businesses, and all this added onto the site hosting all the pornographic material that the predators have sent to the decoys along with their names, hometowns, and all other information that would easily classify as doxing. Von Erck and Fencepost would eventually have a falling out over such behavior, with Fencepost stating that Xavier became much more oriented towards the pedophiles getting arrested more than just making them complete social pariahs in their neighborhood. During the falling out, it was November in 2004 that the group teamed up with Dateline NBC to conduct sting operations for national television broadcasts under the name Dangerous Web. It later on became its very own program, the one that we know today, given the name To Catch a Predator. Hosted by the one and only Chris Hansen, a news reporter with a borderline superpower of being able to stop any man dead in his tracks to take a seat for a brief interview. Chris Hansen is a television journalist from Michigan who got his start as a reporter for NBC in 1981. Gaining a massive amount of experience through his years of investigative reporting from all over the country, he became nationally known in the world of true crime, reporting on famous disasters like Columbine and covering the September 11th attacks on behalf of NBC. His repertoire of skills mixed with his charming and entertaining personality, he was chosen to host the Predator series for NBC. While being Dateline's most popular show, it drew rather heavy criticism, as some would call it making news rather than reporting news, and that NBC only cared about ratings. Did they? Well, maybe. However, its popularity was a blessing to the millions of people unaware that such a thing was even going on in the first place. Besides, shaming these people on a public stage for wanting to have sex with underage girls and boys completely overrides any moral high ground that any of these critics could possibly want to take. Another critique commonly thrown at the show is that it relies too much on entrapment. However, the very definition of entrapment is the practice where a law enforcement agent induces a person to commit a criminal offense that the person would otherwise have been unlikely or unwilling to commit. The decoys and the rest of the team are very careful about this, and as I mentioned before, they never initiate contact or instigate sexually charged conversation. Quite the contrary, as depending on the state, if the conversation itself isn't enough to prove intent, them showing up to the house is. Local residents where the stings would often take place led to protests stating that they didn't want pedophiles coming to their neighborhood, but thinking about this logically, wouldn't a location filled with people trying to deal with that exact problem be the absolute safest place you could be against such a threat? Anyway, in June 2007, the operation was under heavy scrutiny after 23 of the predators had their cases dropped, citing that perverted justice failed to provide enough usable evidence that crimes were committed within the county's jurisdiction. Perverted Justice responded by claiming that the district attorney's office was changing its explanation for dropping the charges and could not defend the claim that evidence was inadequate. In 2010, that very same DA was indicted on a state jail felony charge for tampering with a government record, so who's really to blame here? I'll let you decide. The show ran until 2008 after the suicide of one of the predators they caught. The sister of said predator had sued NBC over this, which was later settled for an undisclosed amount. Chris himself has stated that the show didn't end because of this, that it had simply run its course. But today, I'm going to go through every episode that aired and let you into the world of online internet predators from the days of excruciatingly slow dial-up internet and getting completely scammed out of your entire bank in RuneScape. And I know what you're probably thinking. Oh boy, yet another animated YouTube video essay channel going through an entire TV series that ended a decade ago. He's not really going to go through every episode, is he? And my answer to that is, yeah. But before I begin, unpopular opinion time. Let me be clear. Sympathy isn't something that the show tries to lend to the guys showing up to the sting houses. Quite the contrary. All news media-based scare tactics aside, at the end of the day, the show broke into the mainstream fairly quickly and did an immeasurable amount of good by raising awareness of this issue. I know the show wasn't without its faults and failures, and while it may seem like I'm punching down, you're goddamn right I am. These people are scum and deserve to be treated as such. So I know what you're gonna say. You're gonna be like,
but Gooba, don't make fun of people's appearances. They can't change that.
well, no. Too bad. They can change the fact that they don't show up to a fucking sting house and expect to have sex with a minor, so you know, the old adage goes, if you fuck around, you're eventually gonna find out. Anyways, let's just get this show on the road already. Also, hey, NBC, I know you're gonna give me a hard time about using clips from the show, so let me just say, you can suck my dick. Now, the episodes follow the same formula. Number 1, a volunteer from Perverted Justice will act as a decoy, ranging anywhere from 12 to 15 years old in an online chat room and wait for the predators to initiate. 2, they set up a meeting at the sting house. 3, Chris comes out, gives them an ass blasting of a lifetime and forever cementing their public embarrassment for the world to see. 4, they leave and get arrested. Episode 1 starts like a trailer to a horror movie, basically instilling the fear that these guys are right outside, tapping on your chamber door, waiting to come in and get them kids.
He thinks he's at this house to have sex with a 14-year-old girl.
Sit at the counter, I gotta finish getting dressed.
He met her just hours ago in an internet chat room, the kind your kids may visit every day.
We're introduced to 2 of our main characters, Del and Frag, as they explain more about what they do.
We rented this house in a middle-class neighborhood on a main street far from any school.
Protecting little children from people who would destroy their lives. It's just such a worthy cause.
According to Chris, it took only 2 hours for them to be up and running to lure in their first. Of the 8 hours they filmed, they got 8 men. Meet the first predator, a guy going by the name SR8219, married with children, coming to meet someone he thinks is a 14-year-old.
Del, posing as a 14-year-old, invites him in. And even though there really isn't a 14-year-old in the house, this man still may be committing a crime.
It cuts to what would become a staple of the series, the reading of the online chats. Being hilariously read aloud by a voiceover who most certainly doesn't match what the predator looks like, here you really get a full display of both how disgusting these people are and how even more disgusting their grammar is.
You on the pill?
No. You wear condoms?
If you want me to, but I'm sterile.
Okay, then you don't have to wear a condom if you don't want to.
But before we have sex, I want you to make me
Chris walks out, and graced by his glory and majesty, the predator sits down without even being asked to.
I knew. You knew what? Exactly what was going on. I knew what was going on. I'm not stupid.
It's pretty clear that Steve thinks he was caught up in a police sting.
You do this a lot? No, this is the first time I've actually did show up to see what was going on.
And you expect me to believe that?
Yes, I do.
Given that this is the first sting, you actually get a brief glimpse of Chris actually showing genuine anger here.
And how would you feel if one of your children was 13 or 14 years old, that child was home alone, chatting with somebody on the internet who ultimately came over with no parent at home? How would you feel about that as a parent?
I'd be pretty pissed off.
After chatting shirtless on a webcam, this next idiot comes walking in for a 13-year-old with his hands on his hips, completely unaware he's about to get his ass reamed out.
He's 33-year-old Musti, Me for Magic, New York, and he's expecting to hook up with a 13-year-old virgin.
This turtleneck under short sleeve shirt wearing fuck sits down and adjusts his beanie to make sure he looks top of his class before a tall, handsome suited reporter comes in to destroy his public life. This one's excuse is that he talks to all of his friends like this and it's just a game to him. When asked about what game he's playing, his response is, "It's up to you, I don't know."
So you talk this way to all your friends on the internet?
Yes.
About all these sex acts and in this
Yes,
way?
and everybody talking like that, and they have a web site over there too.
So this is just a game to you?
Yes, it's a just game.
What game were you playing on the webcam?
It's up to you, I don't know.
Now this one is Dark Hero, a 30-year-old with what Chris explains as a history of mental illness. Well, I'll let him explain it.
Dark Hero showed up expecting a date with a 13-year-old girl. It turns out he has a history of mental illness with possible suicidal tendencies. So we've disguised his identity but included him in our report to illustrate how there's no telling what kind of unstable character might show up for a meeting with a minor.
Though he seems to know perfectly well what he's saying in the chat, I'm not exactly giving this guy the benefit of the doubt here.
I want to be your master so badly.
I've only been with one guy.
That's okay. I'll tell you exactly what to do. You'll be fine.
But instead of meeting his fantasy girl, I walk in.
Oh, Chris, you'll always be my fantasy girl.
Thought it was a good idea to come visit a 13-year-old girl for what reason?
Just to hang out. Just a lonely guy, you know? I don't mean anybody any harm.
Have you ever done this before?
No.
When confronted on what he'd do if there was a 13-year-old here, he gives the classic, "Oh, we just go for a ride in the car."
I'm a schizophrenic man. I'm supposed to see my doctor today.
All right, perhaps you should go see him.
I'm just getting my life in order. You're gonna ruin my life.
What would you have done with a 13-year-old girl?
I probably just would have said hello and how you doing, and maybe we would have taken a ride in the car, and that's it.
You were gonna take her for a ride in the car?
Maybe.
Then he drops this on Chris.
I just got out of a mental institution a few months ago. I'm just a guy looking for a girlfriend. That's it. You're gonna take a guy who's looking for a girlfriend and put him on TV and say, "Oh, here's a pedophile." That's what you're gonna do, right? Because I came to meet a 13-year-old, even though I didn't do anything.
Okay, he didn't actually do anything to a real child, so he's free to go. That's sarcasm, of course. This guy has had plenty of run-ins with law enforcement, and it's even revealed that one of his ex-girlfriends has an order of protection against him, which he violated. He was later admitted back to a psychiatric hospital. 34-year-old Eddie here, with the common courtesy to wipe his feet on the mat, dusts off his shirt and enters the house ready for a very special date. However, the very first thing he does when he comes in is ask the decoy if she'll say she's 19.
Okay, listen, just say something to me.
What do you want me to say?
I say, Rachel, you're 19 years old, right?
Dell, of course, says,
I'm not, though. You know I'm not.
this dumb-looking fuck thinks he has some 900 IQ brain get-out-of-jail-free card by getting a 14-year-old to say this, but it doesn't go as planned for him once our handsome host walks out to ass blast him.
But she told you on the internet she was 14.
19, she was on the internet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's right.
On the internet?
Yeah.
You want to stick with that story?
That's what I thought she wrote.
Of course, lying doesn't really work out when Chris has the transcripts he could throw back into your face, and they read them together.
You want to see the transcript?
I'm sure you have it.
The fact that Eddie is so cunning doesn't surprise law enforcement experts.
Not only are they not stupid, but they're probably above average intelligent. They can be a wide variety of individuals, but a lot of them are well-educated individuals.
Yeah, not too sure about that one. This one seems like his brain was dipped in Diet Coke for a few seconds and then put back in. 35-year-old Craig, under the screen name 34 going on 17 with the already outdated username, came around looking for a 13-year-old boy. He tries to play it off because he was just bored.
I was just gonna hang out. I really wasn't gonna do anything, to be honest with you. I've never done anything like that, and I was just bored.
He sure didn't seem bored earlier online.
Weird, when I'm bored I usually just play Genshin Impact. This dude should try that game. Actually, wait, no, he shouldn't. That was a fucking terrible example, holy shit. So Esteban here, aka Ska 80p, whatever, eagerly walks into the kitchen waiting for his date. After Chris confronts him in a strange turn of events, he actually admits to what he did.
Why don't you tell me exactly what you talked about?
About smoking. About sex.
About sex?
Yeah.
The interview had to get cut short though, because as it was happening, another guy shows up. So they throw Esteban in the basement.
We cut short our interview because while we were talking to Esteban, yet another man is at our door. We asked Esteban to wait in the basement.
Fathead gray shirt over here traveled state lines to meet a 14-year-old. Once he arrives, he wonders if he has the wrong address.
Mike says he's at the wrong address.
This isn't 554?
Yeah, no, this is not 554.
Then he says someone was impersonating him online.
I have no idea what this is.
Either way, he says, it's all a big mix-up.
Chris doesn't buy this, though, and starts to lay into him even more, asking what he's doing here if he thinks it's the wrong address, and you can tell this really aggravates him.
Explain to me exactly how you ended up here. I mean, you just walked up the sidewalk and walked into this house because what? You thought it looked like a nice house? Yeah. Do you understand why that story doesn't make sense?
Once his ass is thoroughly blasted, he admits that he was lying.
After a few minutes, Mike decides to come clean.
You weren't thinking? No. So all that stuff you told me earlier is a lie. You want to tell me the truth now? What happened?
After a commercial break, it's explained that some of the predators don't know they're being filmed and showcases some of their reactions to this sudden realization and how quickly some of these douchebags can flip a switch to play the victim card.
Remember, so far, these men don't realize they're being videotaped, much less that they'll turn up on Dateline.
I am a correspondent for Dateline NBC.
But they're about to find out.
You can't put me on TV.
Yes, we can.
24-year-old Ryan is a firefighter trying to find a twin flame with a 14-year-old. However brave he may be, being into a position to walk into a flaming building, he seemingly pussies out after driving by the house and calls to cancel because she's too young.
A New York City firefighter.
Want to call me? He wants to talk.
After spending hours engaged in an obscene chat, sometimes from the firehouse, he makes a plan to come over to have sex with our 14-year-old. But as he drives by the house, he phones. Having second thoughts and cancels, telling our decoy she's too young.
As it turns out, he spotted a police car next to the Sting house, but after going home, he gets right back to it, turns on the webcam, and jerks his Jimmy still in his work clothes.
He went back to saying there was immoral and illegal and everything else.
But even that doesn't stop him. He gets comfortable again, turns on his webcam, he exposes himself, and masturbates, all while wearing his New York City firefighter sweatshirt.
After making plans a second time, he bails again. So, like a tiger searching for his prey, Chris goes looking for him.
He says he's going to come by the house again. He never makes it, so we go looking for him.
Hey, Ryan. Chris Hansen with Dateline NBC.
Chris follows up with him with a printout of his webcam action and receives this excuse.
You turned on the webcam and transmitted this picture.
That was not supposed to be transmitted.
Of yourself exposing yourself.
That was not transmitted. For the record, I was talking to another person at the time. I did not intend for her to see that.
You didn't intend for her to see that?
No, sir, I did not. Somebody else was viewing that at the time.
At the end of the episode, they interview both the local parents and the local children about the situation and talk about the disconnect between parents not knowing what their kids are doing online. Chris shows the children footage of the previous sting, and they all take turns choosing an adjective to describe it.
We assembled a group of parents who live just a matter of miles from our hidden camera house. They all told me they were aware that computer predators are out there, but none was prepared to see what happened in their own backyard.
Personally, I'm totally shocked that many people responded, which just shows me that it's not something rare. It's not the 1 in a million guy out there.
But if seeing what these men did wasn't frightening enough for these parents, hearing what these middle school kids tell me they experience online may be more shocking.
Has anyone here had a stranger say anything you felt uncomfortable about that was inappropriate?
Once, with their parents' permission, I showed them the results of our investigation.
So this is just a game? Yes, it's just a game.
That was all like real? That all actually
totally
happened? I don't like it. Creepy. Freaky. Disgusting. Scary. Weird. Reality.